Morning team, it's me, your favourite, Jordan at the screen, and today I'm doing another episode in my series, Feminism versus the Patriarchy, and today I'm going to be tackling the contentious subject of not all feminists are like that. I don't know why I'm tidying up the floor whilst I'm talking, but apparently I am right now. So, I disagree with the concept of not all feminists are like that. I say it should be, instead of NAFALT, for the abbreviated version, instead I wish to call it YAFALT. Did I say abbreviated? I should really say acronym. Oh well. I say it should be called YAFALT. Yes, all feminists are like that, and I'll explain to you why in a moment. But before I do, I want to address that niggling issue in the back of your mind, where you're thinking to yourself, but Jordan, last week you said there are different levels to being a feminist and all these different forms and whatnot. You know, how can they therefore all be like that if they're all different, you know, strata and all these different platforms and all these different forms of feminists? Well, that's because whilst they are all different forms of feminists, they are all exactly that, feminists. Hey, easy. But first, some definitions. So let's go for definitions of patriarchy. Now, Wikipedia, the greatest of all sources, says patriarchy is a social system in which males hold primary power and predominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. Okay. Everyday Feminisms, again, another beautiful source, defines patriarchy as a system of domination by which the wealthy, white, male ruling class has authority over everyone else. Okay, let's keep going with this one. And my most favourite source ever, the London Feminist Network, perfection. And patriarchy is the term used to describe the society in which we live today, characterised by current and historic unequal power relations between men and women, or women and men as the quote says, whereby women are systematically disadvantaged and oppressed. And, you know, the general gist, because that's what gists are, general, suggests that patriarchy benefits men yet costs women. It puts men on top, women down below. It promotes men and demotes women. You know, yada yada. You get the sort of spiel that they're going for. Well, let's now assess male privilege. Wikipedia again. Perfection. Male privilege is a concept used to describe potential social, economic, and political advantages or rights that are made available to men solely on the basis of their sex. Sounds good, doesn't it? I like this. I like this idea of being a male. Sounds fucking brilliant. And then a blog called Finally Feminism 101. Male privilege is a set of privileges that are given to men as a class due to their institutional power in relation to women as a class. While every man experiences privilege differently due to his own individual position in the social hierarchy, every man, by virtue of being read as male by society, benefits from male privilege. Now, I do like that definition. It's certainly very specific. And those are the only two definitions I could actually find of male privilege that actually specifically stated this is what we say male privilege is. All the rest were just lists and examples and discussions of male privilege. Nothing dictionary, nothing exact. But that's what happens when your entire movement is a stigmergic pile of shit. Just get shit developing and fermenting everywhere. Just endless shit. Fermenting. Stinking the place out. I hope that's painted a nice image in your mind. Anywho, let's continue. Simply put, this means men are privileged by virtue of sex. The list I saw were all about how men were privileged because they could do X, Y, and Z easier than women, so they therefore must be privileged as an entire class. This, alongside their definition of the patriarchy, we call this collective guilt. It can also be known as collective responsibility. That's why I gave those definitions. Because they're lumping us all together, us men. There's some men out there I don't like. I don't want to be lumped into the same room as them. Anyway, moving on. The idea of collective guilt is such that if one person of a group does or is something, the whole of that group does or is that thing. Collective guilt implies that a person is part of a group, they are all representatives of one another, because of the group. Marxists, I love them, use this a lot. And they really hate it when people consider themselves oppressed as individuals, because as far as the Marxists are concerned, you are oppressed as a class, as a demographic. You are all part of this class consciousness. So, any rebels or any individualists who see themselves as personally oppressed are slapped with the label of false consciousness. Someone who has a false consciousness will think, I am oppressed by my boss, rather than we are oppressed by our boss. See the collectivism going on there? And as feminism is gender Marxism, it is just a Marxist put on an ugly dress and give it terribly coloured hair and really bad body hair anywhere else. What am I doing? Why am I giving these descriptions? Why am I running away with this? Stick to the script. As feminism is gender Marxism, it is prudent to include feminism's perspective on this. So, I've got it perfectly from our favourite feminist ever, Anita Sarkeesian. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Feminism is about the collective liberation of women as a social class. Feminism is not about personal choice. And then when she tweeted that out, she had this little article from the conversation. And she also said that the Women of the World Festival, something to that effect, back in 2015. I can speak. And so, with this mentality, members are supposed to be part of this Klasse in sich. And if du sprichst kein Deutsch, that means class in German. Or class in itself. I can't speak German. My German is rusty and I can't even read the German that's written right there off my script. Pang. And so yeah, they have to be a class in itself and not become one of themselves. Remember, they are commies. Pure collectivism, individuality is not allowed. If you become individual, you create inequality, and they're supposedly against inequality because they want everybody to just have the same level of bollocks. Just collective guilt feeds into their notion of cultural hegemony, which is where a dominant culture is enforcing their beliefs, customs, etc. over the diverse population, so that they, the dominants, become the status quo. That's what the feminists accuse us men of doing. They say we are enacting or enforcing cultural hegemony through patriarchy. We are colonizers and oppressors. But this cultural hegemony bollocks, all this diatribe, all this crap, it's coming from the same fucking crowd that demands we use their language so as not to offend them, demands we change ourselves to suit them so as not to offend them. The hypocrisy. Perfection. It's just never ending. You're doing cultural hegemony on me. You're using male privilege to suppress me and oppress me and keep me under down. By the way, you have to use my fucking language or else I'm going to have you sent to prison because of, you know, that's what they do. Bill C-16, whatever the fuck it's called. That's what the trans community is doing instead. They're trying to say, oh, you know, we're being oppressed, so we're going to prove that we're being oppressed by making it illegal to offend us. Anyway, let's carry on. But that is their point, though, that they are not part of the dominant culture in their eyes. So they can do it, they can get away with it, they're allowed to, because they're part of the class struggle, they're fighting back. But if you are male, on the other hand, you are part of the dominant culture, patriarchy, ergo, because of collective responsibility, you are an oppressor, you have a penis, you can oppress, or you are just straight up oppressing with your penis, because that's what penises do, they oppress. I've never known my penis oppress, it just sits there and just, that's it. Anyway, so, you're now probably asking me, if you haven't clicked away yet, what does this have to do with not all feminists are like that? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. Because as Robert Greene wrote in the 48 Laws of Power, the power of verbal argument is extremely limited, and often accomplishes the opposite of what is intended. As Gratian remarks, the truth is generally seen, rarely heard. The moral effect is a perfect way to demonstrate your ideas through action. Quite simply, you teach others a lesson by giving them a taste of their own medicine. See where I'm going with this now, can't you? So, feminists, because of collective guilt, and yes, you are a dominant culture, that means I can hold each and every one of you to account for the actions of anyone who identifies as feminist. And if you're going to question whether feminism is a dominant culture, the Istanbul Convention over here is proof that they are a dominant fucking culture, since they want to legislate patriarchal theory into being fact. And also dominant over there in the US. Maybe not so much anymore now that Trump's come in. So, using this trick against you. Saul Dielinski, I think he said that in his Rules for Radicals, you know, hold your enemies to the same standards that they hold you and they will crumble. That's what I'm going to do now. So, if you identify as a feminist, you are a terrorist bomber. Because in 1913, the suffragettes, who were the feminists who fought for women's right to vote, remember, they bombed the Chancellor of the Exchequer's house, his weekend cottage. David Lloyd George, it was his house they bombed. So, because of collective guilt, if you identify as a feminist, you identify with the movement, you're part of the movement, you're part of the class, you're a bomber. Terrorist bomber, political terrorist bomber at that. If you identify as a feminist, you want to kill people you disagree with, just like Valerie Solanas tried to do. She tried to kill Andy Warhol. Also, she tried claiming that he stole some of her work, but her work is utter shite, and you know he's an artistic genius, so why the fuck would he? If you identify as a feminist, you agree with Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, when she said in 1921, the most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective. So you support eugenics if you're a feminist, because, you know, class responsibility. And you are a collective, remember, you are not individualists, you are a collective, which means you support eugenics of people you find to be retarded. Now that's not very inclusive, is it? And that's incredibly ableist, but irrespective, it's not me who's doing this, it's you. I'm just playing by your rules. If you identify as a feminist, you agree with both Mary Daly and Sally Miller Gerhardt in the idea that we should genocide 90% of the male population. Well, you already are pushing for sex-selected abortions, so I suppose you're pushing your eugenics and your hatred of men together, and remember, you are a class with class responsibility and collective thought. It's part of your ideas, isn't it? Your ideology. You're one group. Wow. What do you think of them? Do you take responsibility for those feminists? Or is that not your type of feminism? Actually, it is your type of feminism, because if we're all us men are all part of patriarchy, well, you're all part of feminism. You can't pick and choose. You can't be one set of rules for us and another set of rules for you. That's not how it works, poppet. And those were just 4 examples. So, if feminists, you can blame any individual man for patriarchy and male privilege, then we can blame any individual feminist for eugenics, for terrorist bombings, for murder, for anything. It's not nice, is it, when people treat you like this? Say, by virtue of your sex, you are X, Y, and Z. Kind of sucks, doesn't it? It's almost like as if it's kind of prejudiced, in some sense. Some sex-based prejudice. I knew there was a word for that. Sex-based prejudice. Oh well, never mind. Catch you in the next one. Toodle pep.